Well, welcome back. I'm Shane, and this is week 6 out of a 7-week round of chemotherapy and radiation for head and neck cancer. If you've been following the vlog, you would have seen and heard from me as I've progressed and some of the trials and tribulations. But we're getting at the back end now. I'm actually into the 7th week and we're motoring along. I'll be back soon with a couple of the milestones that we've passed and I'll give you a quick rundown on how I'm feeling at the moment. Talk to you soon. Well, hi again. As I mentioned, we've racked up 6 weeks in the current course of chemoradiation. And some really important milestones there. This week I had the final dose of chemo. They give you the chemotherapy at the beginning of each week. So I've already had the beginning of my 7th week. And the reason they do that, the main reason I'm getting chemotherapy, it alone only contributes a small amount to fighting the cancer. In my case, the main reason they give it to me is it increases the sensitivity of the cancer cells to the radiation. Radiation is the main mode of cancer cure that's being used in this round of treatment. The chemotherapy increases the efficacy or effectiveness of radiation by about 5%, which sometimes you've got to wonder if it's worth it because the chemo certainly knocks you around. But we'll take whatever we can get. And on the whole, this is probably our last shot at a cure here, so we don't want to leave any cards on the table. Last week I ran you through the general course of what happens each day. I've only got another handful of radiation sessions and a few doctor's appointments, and after that they'll set me free and probably see me in a month or so for a first checkup, and then I'll fall into the routine 3-monthly follow-up pattern for a little while, and at around 3 months I'll likely have a follow-up PET scan where they'll just do a full body scan to make sure that there's been no metastasis of the cancer that they can identify. In terms of those milestones I mentioned, not only did I have the final round of chemo, but thankfully they've removed my PICC line now because I no longer need to have that intravenous infusion of drugs for a while. So I'm really thankful to that because it's been a bit of a bugbear. It's restricted my ability to do things physically, compromised my ability to do physiotherapy for the damage caused by the neck surgery. So now that PICC line's out, I can get stuck into a few jobs that I've been holding back on and start to actually lift and carry and dig and do a few things that distracts and adds a bit of value to my day at least. Definitely feeling pretty rugged at the moment. I don't know how I look, but I'm feeling pretty average. Usually that 2 to 3 days after chemo is when I sort of start to hit the low point in terms of feeling nauseous and just headaches and that type of thing, and I'm entering that territory now. Not great, but it's certainly miles in front of where I was last time when the primary treatment was really affecting my swallow and airway, and thankfully I can still eat. In fact, I'm putting on weight, I'm miles in front of where I was last time. So for any of you who visited me in the depths of my last treatment, you'll certainly see a difference in terms of my well-being. I'm hammering those anti-nausea drugs that they've given me just to keep it at bay, and thankfully, in a few days to a week, I know I'll be back out of the other side of this and able to focus fully on getting mended and back on track, getting back to normal. This week I thought I'd focus more on radiation and how it impacts you. So the main side effects of radiation is the skin damage that it occurs, and it contributes to a range of other side effects, but for me that heavy fatigue sort of impact is the worst. the ability to concentrate, whether it be reading, writing, and the fact that it's damaging this nerve temporarily, I believe, which makes my left hand numb and tingly and weak. But again, after a few weeks, it's expected that that'll come good. Radiation also causes stiffening and the creation of fibrous tissue on its own. And some people who have radiation, particularly older people, end up with a stiff neck if it's in the neck area. Now, I've had this neck dissection surgery, which means that I've already got some limited movement. I can tilt my head that way, but that way I can't because of the scar tissue and where they've cut tissue and muscle and then stitched it back together. And unfortunately, the radiation compounds that. So I do stretches daily, but the radiation is almost counteracting any improvement that I'm gaining. So after this lot's over, as well as physio in terms of strength and some wasted muscle tissue, I'll be focusing on getting full range movement back, whatever I can get from this neck tissue. And you can even see it's really quite tight and drummy compared to this side. The other thing I notice it's doing is previously after radiation my face became a little asymmetric, where the scarring from the tumour shrinkage had sort of pulled my face a little and my lips. And now when I stand straight, I can see that my head and neck is actually shifting because I've got tight tissue on one side and the other side is letting go. So those little things. Luckily, I'm not overly vain, but they all impact, and they're all long-term side effects of surviving cancer treatment. Some people I know are still surprised that they think of cancer treatment like going to a detox farm or a beauty spa where you go in bad shape and you come out cured. Cancer treatment is much different. You can go in fit and well with a tumour, and the cancer treatment drags the life out of you in killing that tumour, and then you come out of treatment at the very worst. In the case of radiation, up to a week or two after it ends is your low point, and then you start to recover. So if you're entering cancer treatment, please allow yourself the liberty at the back end to taper out of treatment before you have ambitions around being cured and well and feeling yourself again. Now, something that's been a little bit of a surprise along the way. Initially, my radiation oncologist explained that they were irradiating the area that the lump was removed that had the cancer cells, and the chain of lymph nodes that go down towards your heart, and a chain of lymph nodes that go under your armpit. And they told me that I would have most of the radiation burning in this area, and including the internal structures behind here, top of my lung, esophagus. And at about week 5, I noticed that most of the radiation damage is actually up over the top of my shoulder. And I'd been applying the Strata product, the radiation dermatitis cream ointment, where they had directed me, but I was finding I was actually starting to get dry skin and radiation damage at the back. So I asked the oncologist for a copy of the actual mapping of my radiation, both the first dose I had in 2017 and the current. And it was evident that they really didn't explain it to me accurately, and picture paints 1,000 words. And they're directing the beams in a lot of cases through the front in this area, and they're escaping out the back in an area that's now becoming the area of most damage. It's not a big deal, and it'll heal eventually, but it's an example where these people are really busy. They see a lot of patients, and don't be embarrassed about asking questions. And in this case, asking him to actually show me the radiation planning documents and images helped me really understand what they were doing and what side effects I could start to deal with. And in the case of using the Strata ointment, start applying it in the right places right from the beginning. While we're talking about the Strata ointment, something to keep in mind is the skin, as it starts to break down, becomes dry and flaky, and it's a bit like when you have a really bad sunburn. The difference is because you're getting daily radiation, it's like being sunburnt day after day after day, so the fresh skin is still getting burnt underneath. The other key difference, we use the analogy of sunburn, but in reality, sunlight and ultraviolet light only penetrates millimeters, if that, into your skin, and the energy is consumed. The radiation they use for cancer therapy are nuclear particles that don't stop, they go straight through your body. So they create not just an entry wound or entry burn, but an exit burn. So think of them more like bullets than light. They go in one side and out the other, and whatever they pass through is impacted by radiation, whether it be blood vessels, nerves in the case of my left arm, your airway, your stomach, your esophagus, all these sorts of things. Now all parts of your body react differently, but the thing that we see is the skin, and the thing that we sometimes feel is that internal damage. I don't know if you call it luck, but the fact that the side of my face and neck is now numb from the surgery I had means I'm not really getting the pain sensation, I'm just getting the physical and visual sign of it. Now thankfully the cisplatin chemotherapy I'm on rarely causes complete hair loss, but for the second time I'm finding it definitely causes hair thinning. Every day, every morning in the shower there's a decent little handful of hair that's been falling out, and hopefully that stops soon. And last time the radiation beams were coming through this area and I had a crazy cropped off rear hairline. While the radiation is lower this time, some of those beams must still be angling up their way because it's not as obvious this time, but my rear hairline has definitely changed, and some of that hair's definitely got a bit thinner towards the bottom there. So, and I think I've mentioned before, I can hardly grow whiskers now because of that radiation has damaged all those hair cells previously. I think that just about covers where I'm up to. At the end of this week, we'll do a wrap-up of the 7 weeks of treatment, which will probably be at the lowest point in terms of all of the side effects, and from there it's only upward and getting better. I'll then give you a break because keeping up with these every week's not really viable for you or I. So I think after the next week I'll give it a break until that month follow-up, and give you an update then. Down in the comments section I'll include a few links again. I'll give that link to the Strata XRT ointment again. Again, if your hospital doesn't use it, I would really endorse buying it. I think I mentioned I was on a trial when they were originally planning to use it, and there were other people using sorbolene cream, which is the other usual standard of care, and a lot of the people on the sorbolene cream I saw had not just dry flaky skin, but they had open weeping burns. It was really messy. They had to have big gauze bandages, and the people on the Strata XRT didn't seem to have that type of outcome. There's a few other products as well as the Strata XRT. The chemo in particular dries out your skin and your nails, so still use a moisturiser on all of the other parts of your body, but don't put that moisturiser where the radiation field will be, because if it's got any metals or anything strange in it, it may react badly with the radiation energy. Again, you can't wear deodorant in an area where the radiation is, in this case on my left-hand side. Another tip is to steer away from any strong soaps and even shampoos perhaps, but certainly in terms of soaps, I just use the regular baby head and toe wash. It's completely neutral in terms of pH and won't strip whatever oil is left in that area of your skin that you need to help protect you from the radiation damage. And when showering, you may not feel the pain initially, but try and avoid water that's too hot, because as you'd imagine, as this starts to become raw and tender, you don't want to do any more damage in terms of having hot water. And direct sunlight, you're already getting punished enough with radiation, so particularly during treatment, you can't wear sunscreen, because again, if any of that sunscreen remains on your skin, the radiation will react. Usually it's zinc oxide, so you can't wear sunscreen, but definitely long sleeves, shirt, hat, and stay in the shade. And unfortunately, long after radiation is over, that skin will remain more sensitive to direct sunlight. So if you weren't already a good advocate of keeping out of the sun and protecting your skin, you will most likely have to be after you have radiation in area that's exposed. Well, I think we'll wrap this one up. Thanks again for following along. It's gone relatively quickly this time. I liken it to when you go to a new destination. The first time, when you're not so sure where you're going, it seems to be a really slow, ponderous journey, and that's the way I felt in 2017. But I must say, the 7 weeks almost of treatment this time has just flown by. I've managed to stay distracted and engaged in a bit of work, making vlogs. I definitely feel better, and perhaps that's making this an easier journey. And the fact that in total I'll have been loaded into that radiation machine 70 odd times. I'll have had chemo rounds, I've had a whole range of these experiences before, and it becomes familiar. The people know you. There's a lot of people I recognise from 2 years ago, and the fact we got married, they were right on board with that when they found out. And this has been a much different experience for me. If this is going to be your first time, unfortunately it's going to look a little uglier than I've portrayed through these vlogs, but hopefully it's still educated you a little on some of the things that can happen and that you'll encounter. So throw those questions into YouTube. I'll get back to them as best I can, and if it's something really personal, maybe include an email address and we can discuss it offline rather than that very public YouTube comments forum. And with that, I'll see you in a week's time. Bye.